If you're a health or a life coach who's wondering whether or not you have to work with people one-to-one in order to have a successful business, then today's episode of the show is for you. We're going to talk about whether or not you absolutely have to have one-to-one coaching clients and what the alternatives are. Let's dive in. Hi there, welcome to the Wholehearted Business Show. I'm Laura. I help heart-centered and highly sensitive health and life coaches get more clients, grow their businesses and live the best lives while they do it. And today on the show, we're talking all about a big question. Do you actually have to coach people one-to-one in order to have a successful coaching business? Now, before we dive into this, I'm going to send you straight towards one of my free trainings, which is all about how to create a profitable business model for your coaching business. Do go and check that out. Go and download it. That is going to give you everything that you need to understand about how different forms of working with people as a coach is going to work out and be profitable and allow your business to grow. Get that in the link in the description. But on to the question at hand though, do you need to be working with people one-to-one to be a successful coach? Now, obviously there is a lot of nuance in this answer, but before we dive into it, I wanted to talk a bit about, let's just define what we're talking about when we talk about one-to-one coaching. One-to-one coaching is what most of us are trained in when we become a trained coach. That is the modality, that is the method. We are working directly with a single person and we are supporting them in a one-to-one way. That might be through single sessions, it might be through a package of support. There's lots of things that we can do around our one-to-one coaching offer and how we structure that, but generally you are working with people one-to-one. I also feel like a part of this kind of answer to this needs to also take into consideration your approach to coaching and where you fall on the coach to mentor scale. Now, I've covered this in an episode of the show. I'm going to link to that if you want to explore, the difference between coaching and mentoring. But I do think that the answer to this question comes into this somewhere, because pure coaching, I think, is really best done one-to-one. But if you are a little bit more towards the end of the mentor kind of side of the scale, which basically has been a bit more directive, then that's where things get a little bit more interesting or a bit more kind of fuzzy. And we're going to explore that as well. So one-to-one coaching, working directly with someone, either in person, over Zoom, either through single sessions or over a package of sessions. And again, that can still be quite structured the way that you work with them, or it can be much less structured and much more pure coaching. It is totally up to you, and it's how it fits into your business and the way that you want to work. So with that being said, we know what one-to-one coaching looks like. We know that for me, most of us are trained to coach in that way. And I think when you are starting off your coaching business, there's a lot of reasons why it makes more sense to coach people one-to-one first, because that is often where we get to really understand the problems, the barriers, the desires of our ideal clients. It's where we kind of get used to doing the work. And often when we're doing that with one-to-one clients, we're really getting in deep and we're really understanding it. And it also gives us the means to test out perhaps some of our theories around, what kind of framework we might have, or, the more directive, structured way that we might want to work with people in the future. So working with people one-to-one initially, when you first train as a coach, does make a lot of sense. And whether that's in a paid capacity or potentially working with clients for free or pro bono. And I've covered this on another episode of the show, Should I Coaching Clients for Free? I'm going to link to that episode, so do go and check that out. So, I think coaching people one-to-one initially makes sense. But do you have to coach people one-to-one to have a successful coaching business? The answer to that is probably no. So we're going to explore what the alternatives look like as well. There's lots of reasons why you might not want to work with people one-to-one. And what I often find in my business and with my clients is that dependent on your niche and area of work, working with people one-to-one can be very, very intense. And again, because I primarily work with highly sensitive, heart-centered people, working one-to-one can be quite a lot on their nervous systems and can lead to burnout quite frequently. It can just be very, very heavy to hold. And again, depending on their business model, again, going back to that free training that I've just talked about at the start, depending on your business model, the amount of money that you can charge that makes sense in terms of what you might be charging for your clients to work with you one-to-one, there might just not be enough of an energetic exchange, because depending on your niche, you might not be able to charge as much. Like, there's all sorts of stuff that gets into that. But if your niche is not strong enough or not kind of like powerful enough, you might struggle to get people to pay higher ticket prices that really do adequately, fulfill your financial needs, given the number of people that you could realistically work with, at the capacity of having to really show up in what can be heavy on your nervous system kind of one-to-one work. So that can be a reason why people might not want to work with people one-to-one, is that they just find it very emotionally heavy work and it's just a bit hard. Some people train as a coach and just realise that they just don't particularly enjoy working with people one-to-one. That's fine as well. It's absolutely okay. So they might find that you just don't enjoy it. It's not particularly draining, but it's just not something that you enjoy, and that's absolutely fine. Some people might find that they just don't have time to work with people one-to-one, and that they, again, like the financial model doesn't make sense working with people one-to-one. So again, check out that business model training, because I'll try and make some sense of it in there. So some people might just find that I just don't have the time to actually work with people one-to-one. I need to have something else that is a different container, a different way of making money that is going to be more profitable, and that's potentially a reason as well. So I always feel that starting and working with people one-to-one at the start of your journey as a coach makes a lot of sense. There are reasons why you might not want to do that long term, why you might want to shift your business model, all sorts of different reasons why you might want to do that. Ultimately, if you're not coaching people one-to-one at the start, you need to find a way of really thoroughly testing out any particular methods, frameworks, signature systems to make sure that they work before you just kind of push them out. I mean, you can test out some of these other, ways of making money that I'm going to talk about in a second. You can beta test them, but it often would make sense to have some experience you can draw on. Now, the exception to that rule is potentially if you yourself have been through a journey and you've been alongside other people on the same journey and you feel that you've got enough experience to draw on to pull that out to put into some other offers. So we've talked a bit about what a one-to-one coaching offer is. We've talked about why people might not want to do one-to-one coaching in a coaching business. We've talked about why it's particularly is a good idea to do it if you can, especially at the start, because of the benefits that it gives you in terms of your understanding of your ideal clients, being able to develop signature systems, frameworks and methods. But if you are getting to a point in your business where, for all of those legitimate reasons, you might not want to work with people one-to-one, there are obviously a lot of other ways that you can still work with people and help them to get results that is not you working with people directly. I've worked with some clients where what really lights them up is actually group work and working with people in groups, and they just skip the one-to-one altogether and they go straight into doing group work, and that's worked really, really well for them. There's obviously also things like memberships, online courses and programs, ebooks. There's all sorts of different ways that you can make money as a coach that does not rely on one-to-one. But like I say, generally speaking, I would encourage most coaches to do some kind of one-to-one work, even just to have that experience and to cut your teeth there before you get into some of these things. Often when people think, I'm going to create a course, or I'm going to do a group program, or I'm going to do a membership, they're thinking that it's going to be easier to sell something that is a lower cost than one-to-one coaching. Now, depending on your niche, that might be correct, actually, but often the big caveat with this is you will need a higher volume of people. So in order to make a lower cost offer profitable, you need a higher volume of people to convert into that offer to make it work. So you can work with one person. Let's say you've got £1,000 coaching package. You could work with 10 clients and make 10 grand. But if you had a group program that is £200, you would have to make that same 10 grand. And my maths is not mathing today, but you can do the maths. A lot more people would need to converge. Now, again, the kind of story that we tell ourselves, well, it's going to be easier to get that number of people, 20, is it 20? Oh my God, how many people? However many people, actually it's more than that, isn't it? Maths on the spot is not my strong point. But some people might think, it's going to be much easier to get those people to pay £200 to convert into that. That is not necessarily the case, okay? So you really need to know your ideal clients, and you really need to understand the ways in which they might want to be supported, the way that you want to work with people as well, and kind of find that sweet spot. And in fact, that's exactly what I cover in one of my courses called Create Your Aligned Offer. So if this is something that you are struggling with, please do go and check that out, because that's exactly what that course is actually, is helping you figure out what kind of offers to create that kind of fit that sweet spot where you're happy with the way that you're delivering the work, you're making the money that you need to make, and it's meeting your clients' needs. So do check out that course if this is something that is coming up for you, and there is a discount code on that at the minute as well, so I will stick that in the description. But it's a really, really interesting one for me, because I think a lot of us do for very legitimate reasons kind of don't want to do the one-to-one thing, and I think that's okay. Maybe you still have a one-to-one offer, but you have it really well priced so that if someone does come along and wants to invest in working with you one-to-one, it feels really, really worth your time. And I think sometimes part of the lack of enjoyment of one-to-one work, or the resentment that sometimes comes in, is that people aren't actually charging appropriately for that. So bear that in mind as well. That could be another reason. So I hope that that's been an interesting conversation today to talk about that. So to kind of sum up, no, you don't have to work with people one-to-one to be a successful coach, but you do need to have a business model that makes sense, and you do need to have offers that are going to make sense for you and for your clients. So do check out the Profitable Business Model training, and do check out Create Your Aligned Offer if you want to dive into this in a little bit more detail. The links are in the description. And like I said, there are lots of legitimate reasons why you might not want to do one-to-one coaching, but there's so many other ways that you can work with people as well. It's kind of doing that gut check-in to kind of see like what are the reasons why I don't particularly want to do one-to-one. But it's totally possible to grow a coaching business without it. Personally, I love one-to-one work. It's one of the things that lights me up the most about the work that I do. I absolutely adore it, but it's still really fun and creative to do the other things as well. So there you have it. The answer, do you have to do one-to-one coaching to have a successful coaching business? The answer is potentially, but maybe not. Depends on your business model, depends on your niche. I hope that's been helpful, everyone. I will be back next week. If you have any feedback for me, please do leave me a comment. If you are watching on YouTube, let me know if you want to do one-to-one coaching, or if you're considering not doing it at all in your business, let me know. If you're listening on the podcast, please do pop me a DM at wholeheartedlylaura on Instagram. I'd love to hear what you think of this episode of the show. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here with me. I will be back next week with more tips, tricks, things to help you grow your coaching business. And I will see you then. Take care. Bye.